What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and today I'm going to be doing an updated Senate forecast. I haven't done a Senate forecast in a while, and a lot has changed. I think these Senate races are going to be overlooked for the most part because everyone's kind of just talking about Trump and Biden and who's going to be our next president, just because that dominates the media coverage. But I think the implications of who actually wins the Senate could even be more important than who's the president. I mean, court packing can only happen if the Democrats regain control of the Senate, and just any of Biden's legislation, if he is elected president, which I think now will only happen if the Democrats can regain control of the Senate. They haven't had control of the Senate since when Obama was president. So it has definitely been a while. And in 2018 midterms, which were actually considered a Democratic wave, the Republicans actually gained seats there, which is very interesting. So diving right in, I think the Democrats, in terms of competitive seats, actually kind of hold a slight advantage. The Democrats have at 47 and the Republicans at 42. But I definitely think that the Republicans are going to win more of these seats. So let's kind of dive right in. So I'm going to kind of go from least competitive to most competitive. So right now, I think that Kansas is going to be a win for Roger Marshall. The polls actually have this fairly close, which is interesting because in fact Boiler has been up. However, I definitely do think that Roger Marshall will be able to Texas will be able to take the seat just because Kansas is a fairly conservative seat. But I mean, having this poll where Boiler is up by 4 points, I'm going to have this in the lean Republican column. So that's what I think right now. Next up, moving to Texas, I think that this will also be kind of in the lean Republican column. We've seen that John Cornyn has consistently been doing pretty well in the polls. He has an 87% chance to win, and he has been outperforming President Trump a lot. So I definitely think that this could even kind of go into the likely Republican column if John Cornyn can get above kind of that 5% margin. However, I do think that Heger is probably going to get up into the mid 40s, and that this is going to be closer because I don't think a lot of people are going to split ticket ballot. I've talked about that in the past, but that's kind of a recent development that we have seen there. Next up is the state of Alaska. I think this is going to be kind of one of the most overlooked races. So instead of having a Democratic candidate, there's an independent candidate, which definitely is not as conservative as Dan Sullivan, who's the incumbent Republican. But Alaska has kind of been a wild card. I mean, they're definitely more of kind of a libertarian-minded state because they're very rural. I mean, Alaska is unlike any state kind of in the U.S., but Lisa Murkowski won on a write-in. So really, anything can happen. I think most people will go to bed before this race is called, but I think this will probably be between 2 and 4 points. Some of the polls have this race at tied, and I think that the independent candidate here, I think his name's Al Gross, is actually doing a pretty good job at trying to position himself as like kind of a moderate. Next up, I want to go to the state of Montana. I think that Montana will be won by Steve Daines. I think people are realizing now that C. Bullock probably doesn't have as good of a chance as people thought he would. This has moved from kind of a toss-up state to I think more of a lean Republican state in the Cook Political Report. But there you have it right now. I think that these are all the lean Republican states. So next up, I want to go to the lean Democratic states. The first one being the state of Michigan. I think that John James might actually outperform Donald Trump in the state. I thought it would be pretty even, but looking at some polls, we do see that John James is a pretty strong candidate on the Republican side. I think it's going to be a superstar going into the future. In 2018, he outperformed the governor's race and in the polls here. I don't think he can win just because Michigan is a Democratic leaning state and and the incumbent is a Democrat. But I do think that this race could be like a similar margin to that of like Texas, Kansas, or even Alaska. So by no means is this a solid Democratic seat there. Next up, I want to go to the state of Maine. Maine, I'm not super sure about. I'm very in between a tilt Democrat and a lean Democratic state. Um, 538 is actually pretty bullish on Susan Collins's chances. The polls consistently have her pretty down by a lot to Sarah Gideon by 12 points here from a B plus pollster, 8.7 points. We've seen 5 points. So that's why I have it more kind of in the lean Democratic column. Even though that before just recently, they had Susan Collins winning, and I mean their vote margin is only within 3 points. I think it'll probably be closer to about 5 points, but I definitely think that the state of Maine will be different, and if there's any state where there's significant polling error, I definitely think it could be the state of Maine. So next up, going to the state of South Carolina. This is going to be shocking to a lot of people. I think South Carolina has the potential to be a tilt Republican state. I think it's going to be between tilt and lean Republican. Um, I think that Jamie Harrison has been outperforming the polls a lot. We can see recently that it's pretty even. Harrison has been up in the polls. Graham has been up in the polls. We recently did see a New York Times poll that had Graham above at 6 point, but Lindsey Graham is still not above the 50% number that you kind of need for it to be kind of a pretty solid lead. And so I mean that this is over. Let's see. Over 14% of the voters here don't know who they are going to vote for. I definitely think it could help that Lindsey Graham kind of is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, kind of seeing him in that position of power. But Jamie Harrison, I mean, this isn't reflected necessarily in the forecast, has raised and outspent Lindsey Graham almost 4-1. So I think this is going to matter because Jamie Harrison can spend money on the airwaves, kind of saying I'm a moderate and I care about you. Lindsey Graham doesn't, and the clip of Lindsey Graham saying that I'm not going to fill a Supreme Court seat in 2020. I think that's been going around a lot. Even though South Carolina is definitely a more red state, I could definitely see this race getting closer. Right now, I have it as tilting towards the Republicans, but I definitely do think this could lean more into kind of the lean Republican column like Kansas or Texas. Next up, moving to the Georgia Senate race at large. This is between David Perdue and John Ossoff. I think David Perdue is a pretty kind of establishment member in the Senate, pretty well respected in the state of Georgia. People from Georgia know him. I think that more moderate people are going to be more friendly to him. And John also is kind of a new person on the scene. He's kind of I kind of see him as a Beto. He might be kind of a superstar among Democratic circles, but I don't think that moderate Georgia voters are going to flock to him. So I still see this seat as being a tilt Republican state right now. But definitely could see this kind of move into the lean Republican state, like in South Carolina. Next up, going into the special election in the state of Georgia, this race is going to be crazy. If the winner was decided on election night, I think that the Democrat would win, but I really don't see either candidate getting above or none of the candidates getting above 50%. So we can see that Raphael Warnock has the highest chance of winning. But I think right now that Kelly Wilford probably will come out of the primary. But I think Kelly Wilford and Doug Collins are kind of damaged right now because they've been trying to go to kind of the as far right as as they can. So I definitely think that they could lose some of those moderate Republican voters that I think David Perdue will definitely get. Um, the only reason why I still have this in the tilt Republican column is because um, I think that after Biden wins, which I think will happen right now, I think there'll be a lot of get out the vote energy from the GOP. And so I think that they're really going to try to hold the Senate if they can try to get 50 or 51 votes there. So that's where I have it right now. But these two races are definitely very different. David Perdue and Kelly Wolf they're definitely very very different races. David Perdue is kind of going more to the center, while Kelly Wolf, I mean, look at her ads. I mean, they're a little bit crazy, but. Moving on to the state of Iowa. So on the presidential level, I have this as a lean Republican state, which I think some people might criticize for me. They think it's going to be closer. I still think Iowa is a tilt Republican state on the Senate level. I think that Joni Ernst is going to be able to ride President Trump's coattails just enough to win the seat. And I mean, I've seen recently that Senate candidates are trying to distance themselves from Trump. But I think in the state of Iowa, where I think President Trump will outperform Joni Ernst, that Joni Ernst should actually embrace the president as much as she can. Um, I mean, this is going to be a close race. I think the two races that are going to decide the Senate control are going to be North Carolina and Iowa. But I think right now, I think on the Senate forecast, they have Teresa Greenfield just beating Joni Ernst just because there have been a few polls that have Greenfield ahead. However, right now, I don't really trust these polls, and Greenfield isn't really hitting 50% consistently. And I mean, I just think that Iowa has shifted so far right since 2016. Lastly, going into the state of North Carolina. So Cal Cunningham just had a sexting scandal. And based on the polls right now, it doesn't seem like there's been that much impact. But I think that is because the media coverage and the Tom Tillis campaign haven't kind of made it a one pillar of their campaign. If the Tillis campaign can be consistent in their message, going on the attack on Cal Cunningham, I think that we could see this seat be a tilt Republican state, and it would be crazy if that a sexting scandal is kind of the big thing that decides the Senate. But I think that this map is very, very interesting. Definitely the Democrats have a lot more room to improve here. In fact, South Carolina, both of the Georgia races, the Iowa race, have all shifted to the left of how I've had them before. The North Carolina race is the only race that I think has shifted to the right a little bit. So it's very, very interesting. Overall, the Republicans have struggled, but right now I have the Republicans keeping the Senate majority, which definitely is in disagreement with the 538 podcast or the 538 percentage right now. They think that Republican chances have gone down, and I do agree. They've gone down, but right now in this very moment, I think that the Republicans will keep it. I think that North Carolina and Iowa have the biggest chances of flipping. And so far in the polls, we haven't seen much change, which is very, very surprising. But I think this is kind of indicative of our current political moment with the Stormy Daniels and all these scandals that are kind of saturating our media coverage. I don't think that an affair is going to matter as much. We've seen that. But I think it's going to matter more than people think right now. So this is my prediction right now. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you later.